So go ahead and
Sorry.
call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. We'll see Al and Joe as full members for this evening's public hearing. And then we're on to the public hearing. We've got an application for a variance of table 6.1 pertaining to a minimum street frontage and section 10.10 pertaining to rear lot for property located at 100 North Shore Road, Vulcan LLC. I don't know, I think that the four of us anyway were here for the initial,
For the first application. Sure. Thank
bring
you.
it on.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. For the record tonight, my name is Bill Sweeney. I'm a land use attorney. I'm a partner at the law firm of Tobin Carberry down in New London, and appreciate the opportunity to be here before you tonight. I know you've got some handouts that Crystal was nice enough to make copies of. I got a little bit of a bigger one that I'd like to enter as an exhibit at this time that's colored up. This might help simplify things, and I think just so you don't literally lose your eyes squinting at it. It might just help with me explain a little bit what's going on. Just enter this as an exhibit into the record. Thank you. Tonight I'm appearing on behalf of a limited liability company called Vulcan LLC. Vulcan LLC is a family-owned Connecticut limited liability company, and it's the owner of a pre-existing non-conforming campground located at 100 North Shore Road in East Pond. Joining me tonight is Tim Hollister. Tim was with me back in June. He's one of the principal members of Vulcan. As you likely recall, I came before this board in June of this year on behalf of my client seeking certain variances that we had discussed and identified with John Gaskowski and with Taylor Lucier, your former land use clerk, that were, as being needed to facilitate the downsizing of the campground and placing one of the seasonal cabins in the campground on its own separate lot. Those variance requests, after a hearing on them, were granted unanimously by this board. But I'm going to explain a little bit more tonight. At least one member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, who we then went to for the subdivision of the property, has insisted that we needed to obtain additional variances before they could act on the project. So that's the reason we're back here before you this evening. So on behalf of my clients, this is not a continuation of the June meeting. This is a separate application. I've submitted an additional variance application to the board seeking variances, again, of table 6.1 of the zoning regulations pertaining specifically to minimum street frontage. And then I've also asked for a variance of section 10.10, which governs rear lots. This is a public hearing. Just for the record, I would say, note for the board, that we did provide notice to abutting property owners, and we did certify that notice to the board through Ms. Barron. As I said before, my client did apply for and received several variances back in June, and then we had subsequently applied to the P&Z Commission for the two-lot subdivision that was proposed, which we had shared the plans with for you. And at that hearing on the subdivision application in September, one member specifically thought we needed those two additional variances for them to move forward. I need to state on the record, and it's important, that both my client and I disagree with that position, especially as the necessary variances that we asked for in June, we actually met with your staff with, we went over with them, and there was an agreement on all parties that those were the variances we needed. I know in the record, and he was provided a copy, I think tonight, Mr. Gaskowski has written a letter of support for the variances tonight, and he reiterates that's his opinion that we saw and we got all the variances we needed in June. But the bottom line is we're not interested in creating controversy. We're not interested in creating adversity with the Planning and Zoning Commission or any member of that. And so really as a courtesy, we've agreed to apply for the variances just to make sure there's no question that we have the proper variances in place. But we have to do so reserving our rights. And we remain steadfast in the belief that they're not actually legally necessary. As you may recall from my presentation in June, the campground that we're talking about on the property was originally established by Bill Lindbergh as Lindbergh Camps back in the early 1950s, prior to the adoption of zoning here in Voluntown, prior to the adoption of subdivision regulations. And it consisted of a number of seasonal cabins and a sauna on Beach Pond. Lindbergh Camps was accessed then, and this is important, as the property is today, by way of a 20-foot dedicated driveway easement from North Shore Road over the adjacent Thevenet property and into the campground itself. And on that exhibit that I handed out, that access driveway is shown in yellow, and you can see the property itself that's at issue is in pink on that plan. And you can see that the property does not have any frontage whatsoever on North Shore Road. For this latest application, it's important to note that we don't have that frontage, we can't have that frontage, and that driveway is the same driveway that's accessed the campground since the 1950s. So we're really talking about almost 3/4 of a century. That's the way into the property and the only way in. The Hollister family purchased the campground from the Lindbergh family in 1984. In 1989, the Hollisters removed 2 of the seasonal cabins and replaced them with a year-round residence which my client and his wife are planning to retire to in the next couple of years, and I know they talked about that with you back in June. After Tim's father's death in 2017, the Hollister children inherited the campground and then placed the ownership into the Vulcan LLC entity. And over the last 2 years, 2 additional seasonal rental cabins were also demolished, and leaving really only the year-round residence and 3 rental cabins on the property, and the sauna, of course. I'm happy to report that just last month, cabin number 5 was actually demolished and removed from the property. We promised that to the ZBA back in June. It's actually a condition of the variances that you granted back in June, so that building is gone. We've actually followed through that promise. It's already been removed. Since its inception back in the 50s, the campground has operated in a continuous fashion. It's been uninterrupted, and it's continued from that day to be accessed through that same easement from North Shore Road, again, without any street frontage. And from a zoning perspective, it is a legally pre-existing non-conforming use. As we discussed with you in June, my client desires to subdivide this property, a 2-lot subdivision, and basically to create 2 separate lots. Lot number 1 is the one that's shaded in gray on the plan. This is a 0.67 acre rear lot. It's located on the eastern extent of the campground. It's accessed via the existing driveway that already serves the campground. Lot number 1 would encompass 1 of the 2 remaining seasonal cabins. Again, noting we just demolished cabin number 5, which was a condition of those previously granted variances. The retained cabin on that property is in good condition. It's connected to power. Lot number 1 is also going to be subject to a deed restriction prohibiting year-round residency. Again, that is a condition of the variances you granted back in June. Lot number 1 will be served by a new and already approved on-site septic system. That's to replace an existing dry well. And there's more than sufficient area for a new well for the cabin, which will be in the general location of where the cabin 5 was demolished. Lot number 2, which is the remainder of the campground, is shown in white on the plan. That will consist of a 2.22 acre lot. It's located on the western extent of the campground, and it's accessed again from via the existing easement from North Shore Road. Lot number 2 will encompass the year-round residence where my clients intend to retire, 1 seasonal rental cabin, which they're going to use for their family, and then the sauna. A dedicated access easement serving lot 1 over lot 2 is going to be recorded with the subdivision, and it just puts into place on the land records that existing continuous historical use of the driveway servicing the campground. As you can recall, back in June, you previously granted variances for minimum lot size, minimum lot width, and property line setbacks. And when you did, you acknowledged that my clients had inherited a non-conforming campground on an irregularly shaped lot with non-conforming access, and you found that there was a hardship there. The board also recognized that there was an independent basis for granting those variances due to the reduction in the zoning nonconformity. We were actually reducing the number of residences on the property, the demolition of cabin number 5, which is actually being carried out at this time. Tonight, the additional requested variances would also support the downsizing of the campground, thus reducing the overall intensity of the non-conforming use. And again, our goal here is to create 2 separate building lots, which quite frankly will much closer resemble the pattern of residential development around Beach Pond. Now, back in June, we didn't ask for additional variances for a lack of street frontage or the access driveway not meeting the typical access requirements for rear lots. From our perspective, and perspective of your staff at the time, the lack of street frontage and the 20-foot wide driveway, that's how it was back in the 1950s, before there was zoning, before there was subdivision. Nothing had changed. These were what you call pre-existing non-conforming conditions. And legally, and we provided a memo to this, you shouldn't need to get variances to legitimize such conditions. These are the way the property was before the town decided to start zoning. Now, we believe the concerns raised by certain members of the Community Commission are unfounded, but to the extent that we may need variances of those requirements, again, minimum lot frontage and the rear lot access requirements, the same basis for which you granted the variances in June holds true here today for those 2 variances as well. Remember, the campground predates zoning. It's never possessed any street frontage. Further, the existing access driveway also predates zoning, and we cannot physically comply with the minimum street frontage requirement or the requirements for the access drive. We don't own much of the land underneath that driveway. It's an easement over another party's property. Even if we wanted to comply with those requirements, it's impossible to do so. And that in its very nature is the basis of a legal hardship. So for these reasons, the 2 additional variances we're asking for tonight, again, a variance from the minimum street frontage and a variance from section 10.10, which is the rear lot requirements. We believe that the same bases you found in June hold true on those as well. These are hardships that are legal. They're hardships that prevent my client from having reasonable use of this property and the ability to improve it, to address issues of liability, and most importantly, to downsize the campground and make these properties more like the other properties around Beach Pond. So again, I want to thank you for your attention to this matter. You have the exhibit in front of you. I know you have a number of other exhibits. Both myself and Mr. Hollister are available tonight if you have any specific questions. We would ask you to take action tonight if possible, and just like you did in June, grant these 2 variances, additional variances. We are scheduled to appear back before the Community Commission next week, and we'd like to be able to report to them that we have obtained the variances they requested us to see before they proceed. Thank you so much for your time.
We can ask questions.
Yeah.
So they intend to reside here when they retire?
Yes.
Okay. In this shaded in area, just to make sure that is not a year-round.
It is not. Your subdivision regulations require us to show a conceptualized house site, so that's why it's shown. But the intent is to actually preserve the existing cabin that's at that location right there. And as a condition of the June variances that you granted, as part of the subdivision approval, we will have to restrict that lot to seasonal use only. And we intend to keep it that way. The idea was never to change anything or intensify anything about the campground. It was really only to downsize it and remove cabin number 5, which was located right up here, which is no longer on the property as of last month.
I'm not sure I understand why they'd have to have a variance to remove a building from a piece of property.
Well, you don't need the variance to remove the building, but the concept was if that we could split this off, we would remove that building so that we could put a well in for the new building, because you do need a separate water source for each lot, and there wasn't a space to do that without that. The other thing is ideally, what we'd like to shift toward are more single-family homes on the lake and less residences on the lake. de-intensifying the use of the property.
Mhm.
So again, in June, Mr. Grenier, I know you weren't here for it, in June, the board found that there was hardships for the first 3 variances. We didn't seek the variances we're here tonight, because quite frankly, we still don't think we actually need them. But we respect the opinion of certain commission members, and they asked us to come back to the ZBA, and so we're here tonight to seek them, sort of like belt and suspenders, to address the issue and address any concerns they might have.
Were they, this person on the zoning board, is he speaking for someone else, one of the other property owners, adjoining property owners that had a problem with this, or is everybody was on board with that?
As of, to date, we've talked with all the abutting property owners, including the Thevenet family. I know Jim Thevenet's in the audience tonight. We went as far as to reach a new agreement with the Thevenets over the maintenance of the shared driveway. I believe Mr. Thevenet has signed that agreement. I don't have a copy of it yet. His attorney hasn't given it to me yet. But the intent is to clarify that, because it's an old easement that just basically says you have a right to repass and repass. We have clear, defined obligations in that, and our obligations to actually do some repairs and repaving of that as well. But no, we actually, before we did anything, we met with our neighbors, and vetted this.
So there was one big area that had everyone's names on it and everything.
Yeah, so we really wanted to make sure that we were doing something that was okay with our neighbors, and we vetted it before we made even any application. I think the commissioner's concern, in her mind, I think she sees this as an intensification of use, where in fact what we're doing is de-intensifying, because we're removing residences. And I think that's where, if you read the letter from Mr. Gaskowski, he agrees with our position on it. Again, we're not in the business of trying to create battles with towns. We want to work with people. We want to work with our neighbors. We want to work with the town commissions, both this board, which has been so supportive of us so far, but also the P&Z Commission.
Sean? Joe?
What's the terrain over here, is that?
Which part are you looking
That's about right, I'm just curious.
It's very, very steep. So that's a wooded, a very steep hill that goes up towards North Shore Road. And if you've been out to the property, I don't know if you had a chance to, but you can also see it a little bit when you're on Beach Pond if you look into it. This is clear in this area, but this is all wooded backing up to this building lot.
No, you got anything? All right. Anything else?
I have no other questions.
Sean? All right, excellent. I guess we will close
I
the
think
public.
you probably want to ask if there's anybody in the public who wants to speak.
Yeah, well, that was my next to go with, and then, to close. Is there anybody who wants to speak for or against the application as it stands at this time?
No, we're satisfied with the officer's application.
All right, excellent, very good. All right,
Thank you so much for your time.
we'll, close the public hearing at this point so we can talk about the application. At this point, the applicants, they can't answer any more questions. It's just us to decide what the situation is here. Does anybody have any comments to begin with?
I guess for me, I'm just applying common sense here, you know, would this set any kind of precedence for future complications in other properties? Would our actions that we take here would this set a precedent, like if somebody wanted to do this again?
I think that it's a pretty unique situation there. I mean, they have no frontage at all. They have an access road to get into the property. So I don't believe
Would
that.
somebody cite this as a future, I mean, because ideally you wouldn't want that, right? You'd want frontage to the road.
I-
Just
wouldn't meet
gen-
zoning.
generic
Right,
zoning.
anything new wouldn't meet zoning, so the way that it is
Yeah.
right now is it's a non-conforming
So
as
nobody
it
in the
is.
future could cite this and say, I wanna do it on my property.
No, because this was the way that it was done with the access roads before. before Voluntown had zoning, or it wouldn't have been allowed if they were in place at that time.
Okay.
So, that was, my opinion is that they didn't have any frontage, so that seems a little,
Yeah,
I
it's,
feel like it's a bit unnecessary myself. Nothing has changed from when we met about it before. This is new to you, Ed, so,
It seems like that we're just here for clarification, but in the form of an actual vote.
so, anything else? Does
I
any-
was kind of thinking the same thing he was saying, you know?
yeah, I mean, it's a weird situation, but
Mhm.
obviously it's not ideal, but like, back then it didn't.
Right, and it's one of those kind of things that with it being landlocked without the access road, it would sit there doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's been around for a long time, so I would think that that's clearly
Yeah.
shown a hardship in being able to use the land that they own.
So are we looking for a motion?
We are.
Not exactly sure how to word it.
You can take it just to approve of the information.
Alright, I'd like to make a motion to approve the application of variance pertaining to the minimum street frontage for this lot, this number of property, 100 North Shore Road.
I'll second. Sorry, yay, nay?
Yay.
Yay?
Yeah.
Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you so much for coming out tonight, really appreciate it.
All right.
Alright, attention is,
Right,
or
yeah.
That's the way we always take it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
take your suit, just yeah, I just had to leave that.
Take care.
Have a good night.
Thank you for your service, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Congratulations. You did a good job. Yeah.
You did a great job.
Yeah.
I'll call you if I ever need you.
Yeah, right. I'll call you.
All right,
Madam
all
Chair,
right, let's see, what do we have next?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I wanted to take 30 seconds to tell you a funny story about cabin 5.
Absolutely.
Cabin 5 is the one we took down last month, as we promised. The one memory I have of that cabin, I don't know if Jim Tevene was there, July 20, 1969. Remember what happened on that day?
No.
The moonwalk.
Oh,
All the kids at Lindbergh camps were in cabin 5 with this black and white TV with the rabbit ears and the foil,
Well,
watching
it's
this snowy picture, and all the parents were up at the Lindbergh cabin where they watched it on color.
Oh,
You learned things were not always fair.
that's great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Talk to you soon.
We'll be in touch.
Congratulations.
We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Oh, very good.
Luck to those on the ballot tomorrow.
well, they should. I would think because they got, approval to do the,
I remember me from when I
Well-
sued the town, it was their attorney then.
it depends on if you know right up front that there's, a very short.
What's that? Yeah, well, I was on the zoning board of appeals
This guy
then
was on
as
my
well.
board.
And, oddly, it was a lack of road frontage situation that the town had, but that's aside from anything business related here.
I got all out of order. Mine is yesterday. You take this one, because it's buried in there somewhere. All right, the next thing we have is approval of the minutes. Did you guys have a chance to read through them before tonight? I read through them earlier today, the minutes from our last meeting. The minutes, I think that, do you have the agenda or the minutes? The minutes.
There's a lot of minutes if we discussed all of that,
I'm gonna put all this stuff in together.
you see any problem.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 2nd, 2025 zoning board of appeals meeting.
Second.
Third?
No.
Hey or
Yay
nay?
or nay?
Yay.
Yay. Aye. Aye.
Yay.
All right. The minutes have passed.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Any additions to the agenda? I don't have anything. Anybody have anything? Citizens' comments, we already have. Old business, we already did that. That's just from the last meeting. All right, and then did you guys see the schedule for next year's meetings?
Will you follow that?
It's in there a little, it's on
I
after
see there's a
all.
lot of pictures.
Yeah,
It should be the last one.
yeah. Yep, it is. It's the last page of the packet. Here.
I know.
Sticking with the first Monday of every month.
I think there's something,
Right, correct.
you know, it's not a meeting, it's not for a while.
Now you'll be texting us? if
I'll
we
text.
actually need to come.
Yeah, and then one of them, it was a holiday in September, so I didn't put down a date if you guys wanted to pick another date. Yeah, I just
Put it,
didn't,
get it on the schedule just in case there is business.
and I didn't put a time because I didn't know if you guys still wanted to do 7, I don't know. It's your guys's,
That's fine with me,
This is good, Doc.
Yeah,
but yeah, I'll text.
I'm looking at September.
That's
So
the 7th.
the 7th is the Memorial, or, yes, Labor Day. So do you want to put the 14th on there for the second Monday, just in case we have business next September, which would be the second Monday of the month?
What's that, does it pick up to?
No. I'm making
Have
some
an
on this
addition
one.
on it.
Let's see.
What?
I'll have my addition plan.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
by next September.
Not the actual.
So they have to go through, yeah, so they have to go through this, and now that since it passed, I come back next
Can I borrow that pen?
Yeah.
week, I don't know.
At 7 p.m.
Oh, it's not touchscreen, I have a touchscreen, so. So I come back,
This,
On the
we're gonna
13th.
turn in, we're gonna have, and
but I go to the town hall.
we're gonna turn one of them in. Are we, you wanna make a motion to accept next year's agenda, schedule of meetings?
I make a motion to accept next year's scheduled meetings.
Second,
I'll second that.
excellent.
Aye.
Aye.
Yay.
Aye.
Either one, it's good, perfect.
These fancy terms.
Any correspondence or announcements would be in here. I guess by way of announcements, I guess I'll just let everybody know that I am on the ballot, for selectman seat. And if I get the votes, I'll be looking for a new chairman coming up and another person to sit on the board.
The rules say you can't do both?
Can't do both. You can do different ones, but in the selectman seat, it's everything rolls up that way, if there's an issue with it. So that would be that, so hopefully you guys all get out and vote. All right, anything else?
Can I just see the pen so I can
Oh, yes, sorry,
sign this?
that was awful.
Good collecting these.
This one we will give to Crystal for the record.
She needs it.
Sorry,
It's all good.
you know, my nickname is Ninja just for reasons like that.
I took it.
No, it's fine. I should have brought one.
I'm gonna just hand it to you.
You don't wanna throw it on the ground again?
No, I don't wanna throw
We
it.
have an extra.
All right, if nobody has anything else,
14th of September.
we get a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting
Make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting,
at 7:33, is that right?
Sure.
7:33.
You got it.
Yes.
7:33 p.m. Second?
Thank you.
Yay.
You all set? Excellent.
Ruined Amy.
So I have this one right here, so.
Just hit stop. Yes.